Okie dokie. Well, it'd be nice if we had a few more people, but I don't know what it takes to get everybody to show up.
Hmm.
So here we go. I'm going to start with the slideshow. Oops, I guess I need to share screen. It shouldn't be that
I
hard.
forgot our topic. What's our topic? Results?
The election.
Okay. Oh, well, of course, what else would it be?
You know, James, maybe that's why people didn't show up. I have to admit,
Hmm,
it's still kind of raw.
that's
Yeah. What's going on?
so now not only did I have to deal with myself and my family and my friends,
Let's try
I
this again.
had a whole load of clients I had to deal with.
Oh,
Well,
what did you have to do for them?
Well, I'm a therapist.
Oh,
but see, now that's not bad. That means, you got clients, you get money.
Good for
I'm
business.
liking that.
good for
It
business.
could be good for business.
Where's this thing
Yeah,
was?
could be good for business.
What is going on here?
But they're so distressed that I have to like hold hands with all of them.
Why are we pausing? Okay.
Hmm.
I'm trying to do a screen share here, and it keeps telling me it's paused. One participant at your time. Fine. And nobody else is sharing. We'll let Michael come in. There's Mikey. Okay. This is good. Hey, we're up to a full dozen now. Hi, Mike. Welcome. We're just getting ready to start the program here. If I can get it to share. And here we go.
Mine says
Right.
something about double click to enter full screen mode. I don't know what that means.
Yeah. All right. So let me ask,
We,
are you
we're
can you
seeing
see my
it's a black screen and there's a little text that says James Schultz has started sharing blah, 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 screen sharing, excuse me.
it says it's paused, and I can't figure out why it's pausing.
But
I've never
underneath
seen
mine, it says double click to enter full screen mode, but I don't know what that means.
I
That's
put
just
share, says
Oh,
host
that's just
disabled participant screen sharing. Host disabled
Hmm.
participant screen sharing. Okay.
let me try this. Wait, let me try something else.
Hmm.
Okay, share. You are
Ah.
screen sharing.
there you
Is that
go.
working now?
There you go, buddy.
That's
Perfect.
it.
We'll figure that one out. Okay. All right. Welcome. Let's see where it's getting going here. We got the talk around. Anybody have anything announcements they want to make before we get into other things? Anybody doing anything exciting? Know anything exciting that's coming up other than Thanksgiving, Veterans Day tomorrow? For
Oh,
anybody who is.
Thanksgiving, I see only Christmas stuff on my TV.
Yes.
You know, last night I accidentally got to a PBS station and they usually always have something for Veterans Day, Memorial Day. They had a 2 hour, I think it's new, Katie Couric, and they were in a Boston a theater, and they were and with an orchestra and everything, and with photographs, and they were redoing like D-Day and the Allies taking, capturing Europe, recapturing Europe. It was very, very, very well done. So if anybody is interested at all, it was on PBS last night. And I don't even know what it was called. I might know what it was called. Let's see. I know it was Katie Couric who did it. And
Okay.
yeah, I'm not sure.
Okay. Thank you.
The
Yeah, I
eyes
know
of
that a lot of
the
times.
eyes of the world, it was called.
Okay.
From D-Day.
All right.
They used to put
Correct.
that on a movie screen when we used to go in there to give the news, and it would say the eyes and the ears of the world.
Mm.
Yes, the old news. I loved going
Oh,
to the
yeah,
movies
that's
and get the
right.
newsreels. Oh, those were
Yeah.
so good. Then you have some cartoons as well, and then you get a movie.
And the short,
Popcorn and a soda were quarter or less. It's like you
Get a
couldn't beat
double
it.
feature. What do you mean? And a short in the middle and more.
Oh yeah, man, those are
and
good.
And they
Those are the
wouldn't
cartoon.
good old
kick you
days.
out. You could stay in there all day.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think my parents got dishes and utensils and all kinds of stuff when they were kids.
Yes, they used to do that too.
It's a new one. It says copyright 2014, History Unbound. There you go.
2020. Okay. Um, okay, and for those of you who are fans, Yellowstone returns tonight
Oh, right. I saw.
for its final run. Blue Bloods is in its final episodes.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be interesting to see how they end those series.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. Shall we go to the calendar of upcoming events? Okay, so we have Veterans Day tomorrow. On the 12th, Mercury will make
Thank
a
you for
waning
your
square.
service, Jim.
Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you. On the 12th, Mercury will make a square to Saturn. On the 15th, Saturn will station direct. 12 Pisces 42 for anybody that might impact. That's close to opposite our sun's, Rita, so
Which
buckle
is,
up.
which is,
Saturn stationing direct
mm,
at 12 Pisces 42.
okay.
Your sun's at 11, mine's at 10.
I've
Change.
got enough
We have
going on. I don't need more. Okay.
and then we also have the full Beaver super moon at 24 Taurus on the 15th as well. And that's the last super moon of 24. On the 16th, Sun will oppose Uranus. On the 18th, Shadow Mercury will oppose Jupiter in mutual reception. Jupiter's in
Excuse me, with
Gemini and retrograde. Mercury is in Sagittarius and direct. Mercury's out of balance, so it could be a
Jim,
interesting opposition. Yes.
the super moon fixed opposition, the sun is right on Trump's midheaven.
Yep. Yeah. Squaring is Mars.
Yep.
Yep. Who knows? Maybe he won't be able to handle all the excitement.
Is that Capitol
Close.
close?
Those Algo's like about 26 and change right now, I think. Zodiacally, but yeah. On the 19th, Pluto leaves Capricorn for Aquarius. Won't return to Capricorn for about 220 years. It'll spend the next 19 and some change in Aquarius before it finally moves into Pisces. On the 21st, the sun moves into Sagittarius. On the 22nd, Venus will make a waning sextile to Saturn in preparation for their conjunction. On the 25th, Mercury stations retrograde, 22 Sagittarius 40.
Does.
On the 27th, the sun will make a waxing fire trine to Mars. Thanksgiving Day, there's only two major aspects, both by the moon, one early morning and one late in the evening. So should be a relatively nice day for the most part. The 29th is Black Friday, shopping day in the United States. Yay. On November 30th, Mercury will return in bounds, and we will have a blue new moon, the second new moon of November for Pacific Standard Time and West only. It's at 9 Sag 33. And that's the last aspect of November. Those in the Eastern time zones will get two new moons in December.
Blue moon.
New moon. Oh, blue moon. Let's see, December 1st, the new moon in the rest of the US on the 2nd of December, out of bounds Venus makes a waning Earth trine to retrograde Uranus. And then on the 3rd, Venus will return in bounds. On the 4th, we have 7 major aspects, including the retrograde Mercury making another mutual reception opposite to retrograde Jupiter, and the Sun waning square to shadow Saturn. Even though Saturn is direct, they're still in their shadow, so keep that in mind. On the 5th of December, Mercury inferior conjunction Sun 14 Sag 27. That's in the vicinity of what's known as the Great Attractor, whatever that is. Must be a
What is
super giant.
what's the great attractor? What did you say?
Well, the Great Attractor is a point where the various okay, so our solar system is part of the Milky Way galaxy. The Milky Way galaxy is part of a galaxy cluster, and there are several clusters in our neighborhood, and all of them seem to be headed in that direction. So whatever is there is pretty strong. So I'm guessing it may be a super John Deere tractor or something else.
Now, where's that? On what day was that?
14 Sagittarius is where the Great Attractor is.
At 12:05.
And that's so on December 5th, that's when Mercury makes the inferior conjunction with the Sun, which is when it passes between the Earth and the Sun. That's when Mercury is retrograde. On the 6th, Mars will station retrograde at 6 Leo 10. Retrograde Mercury will make a waning square to shadow Saturn, and Venus will enter Aquarius.
Hmm.
On the 7th, Venus will conjunct Pluto. The Sun will oppose Jupiter, and Uranus will station direct. No, that shouldn't be Uranus. That should be Neptune. Oh, shame on me. I have to fix that.
Hmm.
Oh.
At 27 Pisces 8. And then on December 8th, we have our astrology meetup, and we'll be looking to see what our crystal balls can tell us about 2025.
Jim, that super full moon beaver full super moon.
Yeah.
That's the day before Trump is supposed to be sentenced.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting what might happen in all of this. I mean, supposedly, of course, all of the prosecutors that have gone after him, and they're all on his hit list, supposedly. This question was raised, should Biden pardon Trump now that Trump's going to be president? So why bother? Let him pardon himself. But he can only pardon himself for certain crimes, if he can pardon himself at all, I guess. I don't think he can, because otherwise Nixon would have pardoned himself.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So he may have to resign so that Vance can pardon him. But then he can only pardon him for federal crimes, not for state crimes.
Right.
And his big bill that he has in New York is a state affair, not a federal affair.
Right.
So they can't pardon him for that.
What do you think the Sun opposite Uranus at that 24 Taurus is going to be? It will be the Sun will be in his 4th house and Uranus on his midheaven.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, let's see. Will that shine the light on something in his home within his home area that has been hidden for a while, or will it?
Yeah, because his Sun rules his 12th house also.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's that distinct possibility.
Where,
Maybe it,
Cornelia? Where did you point this out? Which one?
On the
um,
15th and the 16th.
yeah, when the full moon
Mm,
is on Trump's midheaven and
mm.
conjunct Uranus. So the Sun is opposing Uranus,
And it squares
makes the
his
act,
Mars. Yeah, it squares his natal Mars.
and it's squaring Trump's natal Mars.
Gotcha.
There,
So
there's
the
some
question
law
becomes one of,
about a sitting president can't be prosecuted or something like that.
well,
He's not
um,
sitting yet.
yeah,
No,
he's
but
not
I
sitting
mean,
yet. He hasn't been.
when he is,
So yeah, until he's actually sworn in on January 20th, he's not the sitting president. He's just
right, but
little
I saw
Donald,
something
little
in the
Donald Trump.
news. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. I saw something in the news about how Jack Smith was going to postpone something or vacate something because of that. I don't have the
it-
details, but I saw something about it.
Yeah.
I saw that too, that they weren't going to do anything. They're not going to do anything to
Yeah.
him.
Yeah, they postponed it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it kind of makes sense because it's moving so damn slow that they wouldn't get anywhere before the time before he's inaugurated anyway.
Right, right.
But keep in mind, he's only technically protected from uh,
Federal?
his immunity is those things he does in the performance of his duties, not things that he chooses to do otherwise.
Hmm.
But yeah, what the heck?
Okay, so
Bring him back up
I
you know, if
saw
he's still
a
around in 28, we can always throw him in jail in 29. I'll let him
Hey.
rot there for a while.
Can I offer my perspective? I'm looking at the bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
Which means I'm stepping back and I'm switching lenses, swapping the tropical astrology for the Vedic astrology, because Vedic astrology has the United States Pluto return happening this year, 2024, and matter of fact, on 3 specific dates. February 22nd was the first, July 16th the second, and December 30, 2024 is the third. Now, just like if you can, what's that term, suspension of disbelief, if you superimpose the United States Pluto return on Trump's win, what are the themes of Pluto? Pluto is about power and control. And I just watched today a video by Joni Patry. She's
Mhm.
Vedic astrologer. You may have heard of her, galacticcenter.org. You can check her out. But she is saying that the themes of Pluto is control, power, surrender, and rebirth. And she made this video before Trump won. So this like the whole country turned to the right, basically rejecting the Democratic analysts have even said they've been held captive by the far left progressive ideology, and the working class just said, no, 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 we just want who are struggling paycheck to paycheck, 60% of the country paycheck to paycheck. They just want an affordable American dream and low costs. So basically, the whole country pivoted to the right, and
Mhm.
it's as if the control of the media is undergoing a death, and America is returning to its founding principles, freedom and liberty. The average working person wants his freedom and liberty. He doesn't want a government telling him you have to drive an EV, or you have to downsize your American dream. And so if you look at the Trump's win through the Vedic astrology, which puts the U.S. Pluto return smack dab in 2024 with the third exact aspect, December the 30th, it's like, whoa, things are really clear. I just wanted to offer that, share that.
Okay. Yeah, I won't disagree with you, but I don't know that it's necessarily any clearer than anything and than it was any other way. I mean, yeah, people were surprised. Um, the Democrats, in my opinion, ran a bad campaign. It was theirs to lose and they lost it. Let me put it that way.
Yeah,
Um,
the party of the people didn't win the people to their
no,
side.
no, they didn't. Yeah, here's some of the interesting. So I'm going to jump along here. So here's some of the stuff that's important, I think. So looking back, so here's the result of the 2016 election when Trump won first time. Um, Hillary Clinton got more votes, but he won the Electoral College, and we know how that upset everybody. Notice then, so we had let's see, 127, 28, not quite 129 million people voted. 4 years later, Joe Biden wins, and he wins decisively. He wins the popular vote and the Electoral College. He won Georgia. Yeah, he won Michigan, Wisconsin. He won Nevada, Arizona, the swing states. And we have 155.5 million people voted. So now looking at the most recent tally for 24, they've called everybody, basically. Trump ends up with 312 electoral votes The Republicans have control of the Senate with 53, 46 Democrat, and I think there's still one independent, Bernie Sanders. The House isn't totally resolved yet. There's about 20 seats that are still up for grabs, but the Republicans have a slight advantage. Trump's up by almost 4 million votes over Kamala Harris, but when I got this data, it showed that this was based on about 86% of the expected votes have been counted. So there's still a sizable number of votes to be counted. I don't think it's going to change any of the states, but it'll be interesting to see what how the popular vote does finally turn out. So Trump's up almost 500,000 from 2020. And Harris is down over 10 million from what Biden polled in 2020. So what the hell happened?
Hmm.
So how did people vote? So this is based on an NBC exit polling from 10 different states, and it didn't identify the states. Ding dong, answer the doorbell. Hi, Mark, welcome. So Trump polled best with white males, only 59% of the white male vote. But he also pulled in 20% of black males and 54% of Latino males.
Interesting.
Now, in 2020, Biden won 57% of the female votes. In 24, Harris got 54%, so she's even down with the female votes. She was strongest amongst the white women with 47%, 92% of black women, and 61% of Latino women that voted. Some more exit polling. Trump got 60% of white voters in the age group of 45 to 64. And he got 54% of first-time voters, which was up from 32% in 2020. So he did very well with first-time voters and, of course, the white bloc. Harris, on the other hand, got 94% of black voters that were over 65. And she got 86% of the LGBTQ votes. 66% of those who said America's best days were in the past voted Republican. 60% of those who said America's best days are in the future voted Democrat.
Interesting.
The most important issues to Republicans were immigration and economy, at least those voting for the Republican candidates. For the Democrats, it was state of democracy and abortion. And therein lies the Democrats' downfall. They did not take a strong stance regarding immigration and economy. They didn't do enough there.
Can we say something?
Sure.
Okay. They keep saying it's the economy, but then other people are saying the economy is really good and strong. Okay. So what are they not saying here? Are they not saying we will never vote for a woman and we will never vote, especially for a black woman?
Yes.
They're not going to say that out loud, but is that one of the underlying?
I think so. Yes.
Big reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. Because she's polling less than Hillary polled in 2006. Where is she at? Let me see. Hang on.
Yeah, but she's got the black and she's got the
well, she's
and a
voting
little bit
better.
of she's got a couple of things. Yeah.
Yeah, she's doing better than Hillary did in 2016. But even so, yeah, she's behind this white narcissistic misogynist.
Yeah.
You know,
And this is a patriarchal society we live in.
Well,
yeah,
that's just putting it nicely, Cornelia. It's
yeah. Well,
nasty.
there's more to come.
Okay.
James, I have something to add.
Yes, please do.
I have Trump's midheaven as being 24 Taurus 18.
Right.
And the Sabian symbol for the 25 is a large, well-kept public park. And I just, the whole thing with his little talk in the park and then the January 6th riots. And then who knows? I mean, maybe we should keep an eye on that park for at the full moon. Something else may happen. And also, I have to say that it ain't over until it's over, and Pluto hasn't gone into Aquarius yet, and I think some big things are coming. So
Well, yeah, I mean,
yeah,
until noon on January 20th, when the president is sworn in, it ain't over.
it ain't over. He could
Yep.
drop dead. JD Vance could drop dead, and then I can hope. Who gets it after JD Vance, the Speaker of the
Speaker of the House.
House?
The Speaker of the House comes in next.
Right.
Yes.
Who is that
Johnson.
right now?
Well, right
Johnson.
now it's a Johnson from Louisiana,
Is it Speaker of the House or the head of the Senate?
Speaker of the House,
Yeah.
Speaker of
third
the
in line.
House.
The titular head of the Senate is the vice president.
Well,
Also-
Who's
I
the
would like
tiebreaker?
to know what Trump meant when he said that he and the Speaker of the House had a secret, which they wouldn't tell
Mm,
us until after the election.
that's true. Hmm.
Uh, hmm. Yeah,
There's also I saw on Reddit a lot of people saying that they tried to vote and the lines where they were 4 hours long to get in there. I think, I mean, I hate to sound like the other side, but sour grapes, but there may have been crooked stuff that went on. We don't know yet. Apparently 10 million, what happened to 10 million people that voted last time that didn't
well,
vote this time?
yeah, but as I noted, and one thing that's noted is that they haven't counted all the votes yet. They've maybe counted.
Yeah.
They're about 86% that they've counted of those expected to vote. Now, keep in mind that a lot of people voted in 2020 who didn't vote in 2016. And conversely, there may be a lot of people who did not bother to vote in 2024 that voted in 2020 because they didn't care for either candidate.
Yeah, they do that.
And
You
I
know, and
wonder why
unfortunately-
the first time voters is at 54% for Trump,
Yeah,
when
I
there were so
saw
many
there were a
young
lot of
people signing up
young-
that were for Harris.
I know.
Yeah.
That's interesting. I mean, of course,
Yeah.
Right.
are they predominantly young people, I would presume, but not necessarily, I guess. Who knows? Maybe he rounded up some of those illegal drug dealers and murderers and got them to vote for him before he, sends them away.
Well, he would have done anything.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kind
Yes.
of male dominated podcasts that are geared towards young men that are threatened by like women becoming, like I don't know if you've seen like some of them are coming out and saying your body, my choice.
Oh, yeah, because that's what
Yeah.
Trump said. I'll take
Yeah.
something like that. Yeah.
And so a
Mhm,
lot of people are speculating that they've been motivated by these.
mhm, mhm.
Yeah, who was it? One of the prominent extremist podcasters, was it Nick Fuentes or something? Maybe it was him or somebody supposedly made the comment after the election. Yeah, it was the your body, my choice. From a male standpoint.
That's
There's
really
a
stupid. That's really stupid. Did anybody see Joe Scarborough? He couldn't believe that the price of butter was $7. Did you see that on the news?
Yeah.
where does he
It
shop?
like blew his mind. He was totally shocked. And that even the CNN analysts like John King and Dana Bash, they're realizing, the people in Washington make $200,000 a year. They realized they were disconnected from their constituents who are struggling. What are the statistics? 60% of Americans struggling paycheck to paycheck. I'm not.
I've always been that way.
60% they're voting with their wallet. And so like 50% of Latinos voted for Trump, right? You said. Now you got to ask yourself,
Well,
is that
it-
because they wanted to vote for a macho man and reject a black woman? Or is it just because all of these immigrants are crossing the border and getting fast track, living in hotels, getting all these benefits. When they went through, you know, the legal channels, they resent that.
Yeah,
I mean,
there's a lot about that on the radio yesterday talking about that. Yes.
I think
Yeah,
Americans voted with their wallets, their pocketbooks. And I personally, I don't think it's because America is racist or misogynist. People believe that, but no, I just don't see it. People are voting for their wallet. Imagine the working class, the blue collar worker, factory worker, steel worker, whatever. And they just rejected the policies that
Yeah,
the
but Michael, you are a male. You
yeah.
don't live every day in a female body. I live in Los Angeles. You would think,
I live in LA too.
yeah, yeah, right. But you're not in a female body.
All right.
You would think that we'd be fine here. You should see how much prejudice goes on just being in a female
No, I
body.
hear what you're saying.
And
Yeah, no, I can't. Yeah, I cannot imagine. No, yeah, and I hear what you're saying. No, yeah, that's not good either.
but yeah, I think the Trump did well with male voters. The economy wise, yeah. The problem with inflation and economy is that inflation can go up and down, and it goes up and then it comes down. So inflation went up after the COVID crisis because of the lack of supply and failing to meet demand, and so prices went up. But yeah, inflation has come down. Prices of some things have come down, but not everything.
Yeah.
And the idea of, butter $7, I'd like to know where he's shopping and what kind of butter this is. Because I can go to any store and I can find butter for a whole lot less than that. And this is Los Angeles, where it's relatively can be kind of expensive. So, and what was it? There was one where I saw it a while back where was it one Green or Bobbert, one of those, right? And one of them went into a shopping and picked up and said, "Look, $8 for eggs." Well, yeah, you had you had 2 dozen eggs. It was a large container with like 18 or 24 eggs. That's why it's $8. And if you look right next to it, there it is, $5 for a dozen or $4 for a dozen eggs. So yeah, it's deceiving. And people are getting they listen to the most recent soundbite, and yes, a lot of people apparently are living. They say they're living paycheck to paycheck, and I'm not sure what that means. But if you look at LA, a lot of people in Los Angeles work multiple part-time jobs.
It's because the rents are so high.
Well, because it's because a lot of jobs they don't offer full-time employment to a lot of people because with full-time employment, then they have to provide health insurance and things of that nature. If you've got a corporate job where you have, you're working where you have health insurance and all that, and you're working a full-time job, most people working full-time jobs are going to be better off, though not necessarily well off.
And how much
depending on where
credit
you're
card
at.
debt do they have?
Yeah, a credit card debt is up. People don't realize the problem is people aren't listening to what Trump was really saying. They're hearing what the part of it that they want to hear about his idea. Well, you're going to cut taxes and raise tariffs to offset it. Doesn't work. Either way you cut it. I mean, if you cut taxes,
who's he gonna cut taxes for? Not the kind of people that are living.
well, interestingly enough, he's going to cut taxes for everybody. But of course, the higher you are up in income brackets, the more you're going to save percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise,
Well, the taxes he passed for the rich are supposed to be coming to an end, so he'll just renew them.
Yeah, that's basically what he plans on doing, is renewing those.
Right.
But I saw, I saw an article where it showed that people at the low end, they might save an average of $70 to $75 a month.
Whoopee.
But people at less than 2%. It was like, I think it was like a low 1%. Where at the upper end, you're approaching almost 3% savings on taxes. Not that they need it, but if you have more money, you spend more money. But you spend it on big ticket items that don't really help the little guy. He talked about bringing manufacturing back. That's not going to happen. Because if
Nope.
they bring it back, for them to bring back manufacturing into the United States, one, they're going to have to pay United States wages, which are higher. So the cost of whatever it is they're manufacturing is going to be more.
Musk has
Unfortunately,
already told us we're going to have some hardship for a while when he rearranges the financing.
Who
yeah,
said that?
it's going to be for quite a while. So that
Elon Musk.
Oh, Elon Musk. Oh God, please.
He's gonna put him in charge of
I know.
reforming the money situation.
yeah, sure, just what the richest man in the world needs.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the guy you want watching your money. I don't think so.
Well, that's what the
It-
richest man in the world usually wants, is power to do whatever he wants.
Yeah,
Exactly.
and that's
Another
yeah.
narcissist.
He's going to
I also wanted to recommend this book.
and save
It's
two
called
Mhm.
Cast. I don't know if you saw her. She was on Lawrence O'Donnell. She's Cast, The Origins of Our Discontent by Isabel Wilkerson. If you haven't read it, it's a mind blower, because she really tells us why we have this caste system, even though it's operates in unconscious,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
but how it affects our politics and everything else. It's you got
Jim?
the Pulitzer Prize for this. I think it's called Caste, Caste.
Yeah.
Isabel Wilkerson. She's wonderful. This book was a mind blower for me when I read it,
Um,
because I didn't realize how correct she was.
yes. Now, I'll admit to being a cynic and to an optimistic pessimist, expecting the worst, so that way whatever happens isn't as bad as I was expecting. And yes, I'm a cynic because most of the voting public are uneducated. They don't bother to educate themselves about the issues or the candidates or what they're actually saying. They go off of, they get caught in a trail of sound bites and they make their choice and they're going down that road and they're hearing all the sound bites that keep keep feeding whatever it is they believe. And that's how they're going. And they don't bother to stop and look and say, well, wait a minute, is this right or not? Is this true or not? Because I mean, if you look and you hear a contrary sound bite, you should then want to look and see which one is really correct. If you look at other sources to try to find out which one is at least more true.
But they used to say Trump's base was like 30% of the people. Okay. How did he
Yeah.
get the majority? That's what I wondered.
By saying what they wanted to hear. Part of that being the fact that he dealt with immigration and the economy. That was his primary focus. He didn't focus on the state of democracy or abortions. He changed it. He said, one time he said, well, I'll sign a national abortion law. And then he said, no, I won't. It's up to the states. I'll let them deal with it. Which is interesting because those states that had abortion right to life amendments on the ballot, from what I know, unanimously, they went for the they went pro-abortion.
Except for Florida.
Yeah. Well, there's always an exception. I'm sorry. What do those people know? I mean, they're all, you got all these old people down there that are too old to propagate.
Well, the way that it was written on the ballot in Florida was, in order to pass, they had to get more than 60% of the vote.
Yeah.
They wrote it specifically that way.
Yeah, there are certain. It's interesting when you start looking at stuff like that because it's like in Congress. Some things require simple majority, some things require more than that, super majority. So it'll be interesting to see how things start to play out.
Jim, I have one more thing to say about this. Did anybody see the exit polls? Or no, it was the Google search rank that on election day, when did Joe Biden drop out of the race? Super spiked on Google. Google won't release the numbers, but And, I think if you don't, like, we don't have cable TV and we don't listen to cable news at all. So, but we stay informed. We're astrologers and we're super connected, blah, blah, blah. But for the average person who just goes to work every day, if they don't watch the news, how would they even know who was running? And the commercials for Kamala, the only commercials I ever saw for her and Walls was they wanted money. She had her hand out. I mean, I gave her some money and I don't care, but she had her hand out and that's all we saw. That's all I saw. I didn't see anything else. And the average person who didn't know that Biden had dropped out and is confronted with this election slate, the only name that was recognizable was Trump's.
Yeah.
Biden wasn't there. And Kamala Harris just sounds like, just some other, name. So,
Yeah, unfortunately,
I think, and if you watch Jimmy Kimmel's Man on the Street interviews, I wouldn't be surprised. He actually did one. A lot of people didn't know when election day was. I mean, it's really scary what the average person actually knows and thinks about. It's not like you and I in California.
If you watch The Daily Show, they often went to
Hmm.
all over to Trump things and talk to Trump. And I agree with you. The people don't know anything, and the MAGA people don't know anything except that they blindly accept whatever he is. I don't think they even understand what the implications are, like of a tariff versus other ways of dealing with the way we deal with prices in China and all that. They don't have any concept. And
Mm-mm.
they're basic, I have been silent, but I basically agree with the idea that, first of all, she was a Black American woman. Secondly, men don't like that, especially men who work
Mm-hmm.
in the factories and stuff. We're not going to let any woman stand up to Putin. That's just got to stop, I think. The other annoying thing I found was I had so many every day. I opened my computer up, there they were begging for money. And
Mm-hmm.
I made the mistake of giving them a little money, and then they attacked my mailbox too. It was I've been saying you guys are spot on as far as I can tell. You're intelligent and you see the thing as it is. So I don't really have a lot to add except that I really feel it was anti-feminine. I think it was macho men who couldn't do
Mm-hmm.
it. And a lot of people did. I think a lot of them think no one could stand up to China and especially Russia, never thinking about Ukraine and that character we call a president was going to just leave those guys out in the cold. They're fighting Koreans right now. I'm sick over it. I, I don't understand how there can be that much death, and we see people are fighting for their very lives and having a culture that's
Mm-hmm.
theirs. Their culture is older than Moscow's culture. It's an absolute problem, and I think you women here are really spot on, and so is my wife, by the way. And I just
Aren't we always?
I just can't I can't really say any more than that. It just
Also, have you guys anybody mentioned Joe Rogan, the biggest podcast? He's been, tearing down the Democrats consistently for a long, long time. Um, and he's had all these crazy crackpots, all the conspiracy theorists, and then they spread, there was all these rumors about Kamala. She slept her way to the top. That's one I heard. God knows the crazy stuff they make up. And then when you go on Reddit, there's a couple of subreddits. One's called Fox Brain, another one's called Trump Virus, and people are talking about their relatives and what they believe and what they listen to. It's really scary.
it is absolutely.
Okay, can you see my
Yes.
screen? Caught in
Yep.
a time warp
Mhm.
again? So I just happened to run across this interesting article online, and the link's down there at the bottom.
Mm.
It's from a history professor.
Mhm.
Took to social media over the weekend to explain some parallels between what we're going through now and what was happening in the early 1800s, 1820s.
Right.
And she said it's a
1820s.
really jarring moment to be a historian. To know what might be coming is alarming, she wrote. To realize that no one around you sees it or acknowledge it is a weird place to be in. It's like time traveling without time traveling. She goes on and says, I studied the 19th century and the 2020s look a lot like 1820s. Frequent epidemics, check. Inflation, check. Xenophobia and deportation schemes, check. Women's rights losses, check. Rampant backlash against women's economic freedoms and jobs outside the home, check. Everything that we're experiencing today, our ancestors experienced 200 years ago.
So is there an
They also
astrological?
did in the 1920s because that was during, well,
Yep.
they passed the
Mhm.
Allied, no, it was about immigrants at that time. It was people were into that racist kind of thought that we're superior, and they're the same kind of thing Trump said, that they're tainting our blood, and they passed the aliens attack. They were not allowing people to come into the country. That's when being an illegal became a crime.
Does that
And if,
200
if you
year?
look back at American history, you find that it's like we're always trying to find someone to blame the problems on. In the 1800s, they blame, it was the Irish, and then it was the Italians, and
Right.
um,
Right. Mhm.
that was, the Jews or the Poles or and World War
Mhm.
One, it was the Germans. They're always looking for somebody, we're great at pointing fingers at somebody else, not realizing that the other four are pointing back at us.
When did the women get the right to vote?
1920.
1920s, right? You
Yeah.
watched the
1920.
PBS special on that. It's amazing how much they had to fight just to get a vote. And we're
Mhm.
talking, 20th century here.
Yeah, you're talking 100 years ago. Well,
Yeah.
some of the
Well, look at how
Republican
many countries have
candidates,
had women leaders. We're the only one that hasn't.
yeah,
Hmm.
um, us in Russia, unless you go back to the Tsarina, Catherine the
Right.
Great. Yeah. Um,
Is there anything astrologically that correlates with that 1820s parallel?
Good question.
we're looking at a 100-year cycle.
And then we have the
Well,
1920s where we just said the women got the right to vote. So maybe there is that 100-year cycle there.
yeah, one of the things that Gail Minogue talks about is that the United States is under two cycles, an 80-year cycle and a 50-year cycle. I don't quite understand the 50. The 80 is close to a Uranus thing. The 50 is more like Chiron. But uh, there was a major shift that occurred in around 1980 when Reagan was elected president. And it happened in part because of things that his people did in order to help and assure that Jimmy Carter would be a one-term president.
It was under
Yeah,
Reagan that we got the evangelical into politics.
yes, they came back in. They came in. They started to make their way in, and their whole thing is building, and it's building, and it's building, and it's getting stronger and stronger. Um, and so what's happening though is this 80-year cycle from the 40s and the 50-year cycle that started around 1980 are both going to be culminating in the latter part of the 20s. And 28 is probably going to be 28 and 30 will be very significant. I think we will, excuse me, the midterm election in 26, looking ahead already, um, but that can be very telling. And typically, that election gives a sense of how the public perceives the party in power is doing.
Do we know what percentage of Americans are evangelicals?
I think generally it's probably in the neighborhood of 20%.
That's kind of a big number if you're talking about voting.
Yeah, but I mean, it encompasses different religious groups. I mean, there's the Southern Baptists, they're evangelical, but they
Mm.
may not think of themselves as being even, they don't necessarily call themselves evangelical. And then you've got some of these new mega churches that are predominantly evangelical. Um,
A lot of
and
Latinos are evangelicals too.
A lot of
Mhm.
what, Cornelia?
Latinos,
Oh, I can
because they
tell
got away
you.
from the Catholic Church when they left
Yeah.
Mexico, and many of them
Mm.
are now involved in evangelical groups.
So
Yeah.
my master's, my graduate school has been taken over by them. Yeah, it was a school, so it was kind of a new age Jungian psychology, and um, they have gotten in a minister who has her own evangelical um, church or whatever you want to call it in Carpinteria, California, and they just got two people on the board. They fired the founding and the president, and they voted her in, and she's changing the whole program around. So I'm on the alumni board to try to see if we can save the school from that whole evangelical kind of concept and put it back into a more,
Yeah.
but it's scary when you know,
Yes.
it's very, very scary how they can just get in and change something so dramatically. They fired the founder and the president. They fired a very good friend of mine who was the director of alumni relations for 17 years. They fired the professors that were teaching Jungian and Freudian psychology. They just fired anybody that was teaching mythology, they just fired them. They wanted to be a social worker school to help, just help their cause.
Yeah. Which I find interesting in one way because their support for Trump is kind of a puzzlement because he's probably the least religious president we've ever had.
Yeah.
I mean,
True. But if he's
I mean,
like, anti-abortion and anti some of these things that they are, then maybe they hook onto that.
yeah, that's what they're hooking onto, and some of them, I mean, granted, hopefully it's a minority, a few of them, but every once in a while you'll see where one of the pastors of some evangelical church will come out and they refer to Trump as the next coming or the savior. They talk about him being
Yeah.
the Cyrus.
Wait, oh my God, I was so upset. This is my daughter-in-law's father, and he posted, she's like so upset. Let me go find the picture. Go ahead, talk. I'll come back to you.
But I mean, it is kind of interesting. And I always wonder, when they talk about the Bible says this and the Bible says that, I'm just like, well, which Bible are you referring to?
Exactly,
But they don't
exactly.
believe that any of these things they think that Trump is persecuted and that these are all fake
Yeah.
news, lies, and that, I mean, it almost like the more things that they find that come out about him.
Well, it's interesting. I
A
have an
bullet did
article about
graze
the
his ear.
Antichrist, and it fits
Bullet
Trump
did graze
perfectly.
his ear. I mean,
What was the question?
The Bible
He
came
made a
from
hard right
China.
turn to the
Wait,
right.
wait. Go ahead, Michael.
Voting for Trump, I think the American people did a hard turn to the right. That's known as populism, conservative populism. You noticed in
Right.
the EU just recently, they did a hard turn to the right. That's conservative populism, right wing, right? Right wing, conservative populism. And that's in contrast to the liberal, far left liberal progressivism, which a lot of Democratic analysts said that the Democratic Party has been held captive by that. So this hard turn to the right is just conservative populism, and it's resonating across the pond with the EU. So this election result seems to be so seismic. It's global ramifications. Now, here's an interesting thing. It's like to the Middle East, they're all going, a new sheriff is in town. Trump is back. And you know who's scared? Iran. Iran is scared because Trump is Iran's worst nightmare. Trump is going to put Iran on sanctions back on its oil. It's going to almost go broke. It was Joe Biden who lifted the sanctions. It was Joe Biden who enabled Iran to get $100 billion. You got to ask yourself, do we as Americans want Iran to get rich and have $100 billion? I mean, can you trust Iran? You can't even trust Iran. They're like, and they got a nuclear program. The last thing we want is Iran to get nuclear weapons. But now they've gone from 0 to $100 billion. Trump is going to put the sanctions back on. Iran wants to assassinate Trump. Trump is Iran's worst enemy. So you look at it that way, he's standing up for the United States of America on the global stage, and for his constituents, we the American taxpayers, right? The job of the president is to protect us against countries like Iran, and then to deal with countries like China. And then there's a whole thing, he wants to end wars, whereas like a lot of Democrats, they want to keep pumping money into Ukraine to defeat Russia. Have you heard them say, well, the quickest path to peace in Ukraine is just defeat and dismantle Russia? Well, it's like Russia might launch its nukes before it surrenders, right? So, okay, after a nuclear war and all the dust settles and there's just Keith Richards and cockroaches, we might say, we won. Now we'll have peace. You see, so Trump, he says he's the peace candidate. So there's that contrast. He wants, peace in the global stage.
But have you read Rachel Maddow's new book? She has a whole thing about the rise of the Nazi Party and Mussolini, and she kind of shows a repetition of the kind of archetypical pattern that raises up when these people from the right rise up, and the techniques is that you use it. And you were kind of saying that she was right. She understood how historically this is a swing in the wrong direction, according to me, but she pointed out how it was done before, and the whole idea of how propaganda works, the repeated lie, until finally we all start to wonder what happened to that election. Was that, I agree with you, man. It's you got to
But there's similarities.
Hey.
No, there's similarities, but I would disagree to go so far as to say that, oh, Trump wants to be a dictator like Hitler. Like Hitler, what did Trump do in his first term that resembled anything that Hitler did? Nothing. For 4 years, it was a good economy. But see what happened across the pond, the entire EU, they voted towards the right. So what I'm thinking is, you can go right without being this fascist, authoritarian style of leadership. It's just a pivot to the right. You can go left or you can go right. Either
No,
way,
look at Mussolini.
I
You
have
don't have to keep looking at Hitler. Mussolini is another aspect who actually got.
I don't think Trump's anything like that.
No, listen,
What
Michael,
about
you're way
Project
off here.
Wait.
2025?
You're way off. Let me just explain. I think you may have forgotten that when people came to the border, Trump separated families, like separated children from their parents. And a lot of those children are lost now. They are not repatriated with their parents. And that was a cruel, mean policy, totally needless.
Mistakes are made, but
And-
then allegedly there's 300,000 missing migrant children now. So it's like, oh, nothing to see here. I mean, maybe it's a technological glitch and they're okay, but 300,000
No, they're not
migrant
okay.
children are
They're not
unaccounted for.
okay. They're not
Unaccounted for.
okay. Do not sugarcoat this. That's
Yeah,
not
I think,
true.
Michael, I think you're not really seeing here. Rick Steve talks about, he puts on a lot of programs about the rise of fascism and Nazism, and there's a lot of parallels there. I mean, Germany was a republic. Germany was a republic, and they voted in Hitler. Yes, they didn't have what we have now and see things on TV and the internet and stuff like that. But I think you're underestimating Trump. He'll do anything. He is psychologically not a balanced, well man.
What is
He's-
I beg to differ, but
Uh,
no, yeah, those the families that he separated, yeah, that can't be denied. You make errors and mistakes in your policy, but I mean,
that is not a mistake in his policy. That is an uncaring, nasty, cruel man. And
Okay,
he
well,
will do
what about the
anything. He will
300,000
do
missing migrant
anything
children
to
under
get
Biden?
acknowledged.
300,000 missing migrant
Jim,
children
can
under
we go
Biden?
back
Oh,
to the
nothing to see here.
program?
Yeah,
Yeah,
let's
hey,
go back.
time out, folks. Wait,
Let's go back.
Stop. Let me interject something here first off, okay? The president doesn't do those things. It's the people that are working for him that end up doing those things. Okay? President has limited power, authority to do things. I worked for the federal government for over 40 years. It generally moves pretty slow. When it's moving fast, it's because some other people have gotten their little finger on some power and they're taking it to extremes. The great concern is not necessarily, and I mean, contrary to what you might believe, Michael, I mean, Trump did say that he was going to be dictator day one.
He was
Ah,
joking.
Now he may have said it just for one day, but who knows what he has planned. But at the same time, my greater concern is not so much for him as it is the people that he's going to surround himself with and how much of Project 2025 is going to be involved. And we won't know that until it happens.
Is he gonna put
I think the one thing,
RFK in front of the health business? That's
no,
all we need.
but I think what we have to keep in mind is that, again, the government changes slowly. Okay. It can take a long time. First off, Congress passes a law. Then the law is written into regulations. And then the regulations are written into instructions that are given to the people to implement. So you're talking about a period of months or if not years sometimes before some of this stuff can get implemented. So things can move very slowly. My greater concern would be, his threat to dismantle the federal government and just how much of that he's able to accomplish.
Well, with
Greater concern
control,
would be the fact that he's talking about Trump being talked about doing away with the Department of Education and allowing the religious right to gain greater access, control, or influence into our education system. That's a big no-no because that's not very un-American because America was not established as a Christian nation. I don't give a rat's ass what those people think or say. It was not. It's very clear in the Constitution. There shall be a separation of church and state.
Church and state, yeah.
Period.
Mhm.
Now, a number of alleged churches should have their church approval removed because of their openly political support of Trump or Harris for that matter, because they're not, in order to be a church, a tax exempt religious status, they have to be apolitical. They cannot take a political stance. Once they do that, they start supporting a candidate and a political party, a political agenda, they lose their status as a religious tax exempt institution. Now, has any of that happened? Hell no, because it takes the government's got to do that.
if
But
I
there's a good example of how slowly
interject,
the government can
though,
move.
if the House does fully go red, they will be able to act quickly because they will have a judicial system, the Senate, the House, and the executive branch all working in conjunction to do whatever they want with no checks and balances.
Yeah, the first 100 days you gotta watch for.
Yeah, but even then,
If
it's
education is removed,
they're
he'll just
they
send it back to the states. And actually, I graduated in 1975. I only found out that the Department of Education was created after Carter in 1980. So I lived without it. So did my parents. And then education has just gone downhill. You see Thomas Jefferson High School of Technology, it went from number 1 to number 14 because the smartest students were Asians. And the board is going like, well, wait a minute, we got too many Asians. We need other persons of color. So they kicked out some of the Asians to bring in other persons of color, and then went from the number 1 ranking in the country to 14. That's the DEI. What Trump would want to do would be like remove the DEI and go back to meritocracy. There should be meritocracy in education. That's like advanced placement, honors programs, and you reward the smart students. And of course, you help everyone else. But it's like you dangle the carrot for the smart students because we need smart engineers, doctors, lawyers. We need the best to compete against like China and other countries. We want a strong education system.
Okay.
So letting the states do that probably is
Right.
healthier.
We could go on and forever talking about this and our different opinions. So yeah,
Yes.
But I think the most important thing is for an educated populace.
For sure.
But that, and to me, educated means not just knowing one side, but knowing both sides of looking at both sides of the story, the coin, the issue, and then coming to an educated decision. But let's look at some charts. I think we can probably do better there. I don't think we're going to, I don't know. I've looked and I haven't really seen a clear picture one way or the other that explains things. I even tried looking at charts for the swing states to see if there was some way to figure out how they might swing, but I didn't have any luck with that. Okay, so here's a comparison of Harris and Trump's charts. And now Harris is on the inside because she's the incumbent, Trump's the challenger. That's just the way I did it. But they have some similarities. Notice that Trump's part of fortune is on Harris's Saturn. Now, what might that tell us? Well, Saturn is about structure and following a game plan and put in the work and get the rewards. Does this then suggest that Trump would have the ability or good fortune to be able to utilize or manipulate or take advantage of Harris's Saturn in such a way as to win? To use her strengths against her. In essence, that's kind of what they did because, yeah, the Democrats considered their strength was in supporting democracy and women's right to choose. And that's the issues that they ran on. And what happened? They lost because the issues that were more important to more people were the economy and immigration. So in a sense, they used her, they took advantage of her Saturn. That's how I see that. Any other thoughts?
That makes total sense.
Yeah, I know, and it's scary. Kind of scary that it does, but it does, yeah. I would have over. Okay, so here's Kamala and the U.S. Sibley chart. Is there something here that would indicate? Let's see.
What is Sibley? Oh,
What
I
is
see. Never
Sibley?
mind.
Yeah, the USA Sibley chart, which is the 5:10 p.m. Philadelphia SAD rising chart. There's like half a dozen different USA charts, so you can kind of pick and choose. Most things aren't going to change. I mean, obviously the angles change and the moon will move, but planets don't really change much during the course of the day. I mean, one thing that seemed to bode well for Harris is the fact that her north node is conjunct her ascendant, and they're both in the seventh house of the USA Sibley chart. Now, you would think that would tend to bode well for her, a strong relationship. And in some ways, I mean, she has done well. I mean, she's vice president of the United States, for crying out loud. That's, not an easy position to get.
She only had 3 months, too. She only had 3 months or less than 3 months to do this.
Yeah. She's had the job for 4 years. And unfortunately,
No, Jim, that's not fair.
She
hasn't had the job of running for president for 4 years.
No, all I'm saying is she's been the vice president for 4 years, which is, we're talking the number 2 position in the United States. That's a very powerful position. She has done well. That's the only point I'm trying to make here. Let's see. Her son ends up in the 11th house of the United States Sibley chart. 11th house generally represents, this is the people organization. So, yes, her sun is shining brightly on the American people. And again, they chose her for the number 2 spot. Her, a black woman, for the number 2 spot in the country. That says a lot. It didn't hurt Joe Biden one damn bit.
True.
Because he walked all over Trump at the polls and in the election. He amassed the highest number of popular votes of any candidate in the history of the United States. Even this year with Trump winning, he's not going to get close to in the end when all the votes are counted. He probably will not get close to Biden's total count. So things, yeah, I mean, there are positive things in this chart. Here's Donald Trump in the Sibley chart. This puts his Gemini sun conjunct his North Node, also in the 7th house. So here we have, again, we see his North Node in the 7th house of the Sibley chart. Very positive. Sun North Node conjunct the USA's Mars. That's positive. Trump's Chiron on the USA's Saturn. Chiron is Saturn's sun. Chiron is Saturn's sun. Right all out. Yeah, so in some ways that kind of shows that he is the son of America. He is the product of America, and you can't deny that. I mean, where else might he have achieved what he has achieved? He was most fortunate. Yeah, his grandmother and grandfather were, very industrious. His grandfather made a small fortune in Alaska, came back to New York, made more money, died young. Grandma took over, helped establish a real estate business. Don's father stepped in and took it over and made it into a major New York real estate business. Not necessarily the best kind of business, doing some, questionable methods. Discrimination was obvious in their rental units and stuff. And then Don was fortunate. His oldest brother didn't want to have anything to do with it. The family business, became an alcoholic, died young. Donald took over the family business. Made some smart business choices by keeping the different entities as he created them separate from each other so that if one failed, it wouldn't bring down the whole house of cards. So he's had 6 or 7 businesses that have gone bankrupt, but he still has his empire. He still has, the Trump family fortune for the most part. Y'all can contribute here if you like. Here we see Trump's part of fortune on the USA moon in the 3rd house. 3rd house, neighborhood, short distance travel, early education. So he tends to appeal to people on a less intellectual level, let's say, than the Democrats were trying to. The Republicans were coming from a more base position. Immigration, they're taking your jobs, they're threatening us, and the economy. Things cost more, you're poor. So whether a person is, in fact, worse off financially than they were, they tell them they are. And because they believe what they're telling, because they're leaning that way, they're going to believe that they're not as well off as they were.
Can I butt in here, Jim?
Please do.
I just finished reading this book. It's called Lucky Loser.
Mm-hmm.
It says how Donald Trump squandered his father's fortune and created the illusion of success.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fantastic book. They have so many notes in here. They really studied his history. He never was a successful businessman. He gave the appearance of it.
Exactly.
Using his father's money.
Mm-hmm.
Bankrupt
So
was
they
his
cover up
middle
all
name.
the losses, all the dumb things he did, like the casinos. His father had to pull him out of that one. But his father hung on to the money. It wasn't until he got older that somehow or other the family got in there and took his money totally. But he was using his father's money all the time on every project that he did.
But yeah, he's
And
famous.
he was cheating everybody.
Well, yeah, he's admitted that he's a great
He didn't
user of
pay
debt.
people.
Hmm?
What? This is well documented. You should read it. And also the apprentice guy, the director just came out with a movie about the apprentice to tell the real story. He said because he feels guilty that he convinced America that Trump was a successful businessman when he wasn't.
Oh, that's interesting.
Bankruptcy was his middle name, and he also bought that first hotel. He passed out all of these different kinds of tax breaks that he used, and then they collapsed, and he went bankruptcy. I don't think he had one business that was in. Well, Cornelia, did they say have any business he made money from?
The apprentice, because the apprentice, one of the things they did was to give him money from companies whose products they use on the show.
Ah,
Mm.
He was getting that on the side.
Mhm.
And
That
the
that
guy
isn't a
who,
business necessarily. That's yeah.
right. But the man who directed it, the man that started the whole thing, has now a movie out called The Apprentice, in which he tells the true story of Trump because he feels guilty that he made him.
Right.
Everybody thinks of Trump as a successful businessman when he never was.
Certainly has he presents the appearance of it. That's
Yes, he
and
certainly
and
doesn't.
well, and when you think about it, in America, appearance is what, 90%? It's how you appear, not necessarily how you are.
Right.
Certainly in politics.
let's face it, he's a clown, he's dramatic, he's got, he sold out all those watches, he sold out all those these digital cards. He's unafraid. Wait till he gets into the bit chip market, the coins.
Little bitcoins. Yeah.
He will
What
milk
was it?
his group absolutely senseless with those bitcoins. And
Well,
already he's into it. He's trying now to make bitcoins as some kind of backup for our reserve. Jimmy, Christmas, that's idiotic.
yeah, it is financially it would be disastrous. He's not an economist. He doesn't have a strong sense of economy or the economics and how things work at all. If he did, he wouldn't be
No.
such a strong proponent of tariffs, because tariffs don't work. But
Can we see some more charts?
yeah, I was gonna. Okay, so here's the closing chart based on the West Pacific time closing set for the chart set for Washington, D.C. with the Sibley chart. If you follow that. Okay. So Mars had just entered Leo. Let's see what else. The transiting Jupiter is on the USA Mars. We see Chiron return.
Good old Chiron.
Um, Wounded healer kind of fits here because I mean a lot of wounds have been opened
Mhm.
or exposed
Mhm.
from this election
Where is he now? Where's Chiron here? Looking.
in the fourth house.
Fourth
It's a
house.
Chiron return. Chiron conjunct Chiron
I see
down
it.
here.
I see it.
Um, and here, here again is, Pluto just getting ready to leave Capricorn.
Uh-huh.
Um, of the moon, 6 Capricorn in the first house of the Sibley chart. Um, have any of you heard about the 4B movement in Korea, South Korea?
I've become acquainted with it, and a lot of women on the left are doing that.
Yeah,
Doing,
it's becoming more
doing what?
publicized in the United States since the election.
Doing what?
The 4B movement. The B actually stands for the Korean word "bai," which means no. And in South Korea, the young women in particularly are basically saying no to dating men, no to getting married, no to
Oh,
inequality, and no to sex, no to babies until they get equality. Because uh, as in America, women doing the same job make less money. Women tend to be discriminated against when it comes to hiring. Women don't like it. You know, they want the equality.
yeah.
The kind of the governing issue, I would say, within America, particularly in the mega right movement, comes from the literal misreading of the Bible by the evangelicals,
Please, yeah.
which is God created woman from Adam's rib, and therefore she is inferior to man. Woman's place is in the home, having and raising children. Um, J.D. Vance made it perfectly clear, talking about those old single cat ladies, women who don't have children.
Yeah, but I'd like to
She's a
talk
queer.
about that just for a minute because if you look at the book of Genesis, there are actually two different versions of the woman. The first woman was equal with Adam,
Mm-hmm.
and she doesn't make another appearance. There's a story about Lilith who
Yeah.
got into a lot of trouble with Adam, and he wouldn't let her uh, name the animals or even help name the animals. He always had to be on top of sex, and she was very angry with God about that. And so, meanwhile, Adam's sitting around with his woman, evidently, if we accept the Lilith myth. And there it is. He's got to have somebody. So let's just take a rib. I can't believe they chose that, but if you look at it, there's a definite reference to the original way that the humans were introduced to Eden was that God made man and woman equal. And that was when that kind of disappeared. Then went with the
Yeah.
rib.
Yeah. And I mean, if you go back and you look at the history since that time, um, it's been the primary, I would say, primary source or authority that Judeo-Christian men use for holding that women are inferior to men, depriving them of property rights, depriving them of the right to vote, keeping them in demeaning jobs, paying them less, treating them as less than. Now, one thing that I haven't heard much about or didn't see much about in this election cycle was this group known as incels. They made a lot of noise a few years back, but lately they seem to have been somewhat silent. But I would imagine they're probably more in the right-wing mega camp. Incels are basically what these men who are it stands for involuntary celibacy because they can't get a date and can't get a woman. And
Oh,
they think because they're men that, women should go out with them and have sex with them, but women don't want to do that. They don't take into account that some of them are physically unattractive, that they're not offering much and they don't have much to offer. There's a lot of reasons why it probably happens, but yeah, the great concern, bottom line, I think, because I have two daughters and two granddaughters, is the whole uh, approach of this right wing to women's rights and the fact that they want to turn the clock back I mean, they had,
Mm-hmm.
When that all
they were,
started was back when Paul was around, because Paul didn't like women. And
Yeah.
what he taught was that Eve was a seductress. She was the one who got Adam into trouble by making him eat the apple. And that's why he said that you have to beware of women. Honey drips from their lips, etc., etc.
Yeah, before that, it was the goddesses that were revered and ruled.
That's
And
right.
then by the time Christianity came in, the
It became a patriarchy.
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I'm
they
gonna say
forget that it
something
was,
back to Trump in New York. And I'm
okay.
the only one that can say it, unless you're a true New Yorker like me. Trump shows the best and the worst of New Yorkers.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, he shows a little bit more of the worst than he does the
Well, yeah, I
best.
mean, for somebody who prides himself on being able to choose the best people to be around him, he made an awful lot of bad choices during his first term
Oh,
because he
yeah.
fired everybody.
Yeah.
Nobody lasted very long. Very few lasted very long.
That's right.
Now, he did just recently announce this woman as his chief of staff. Well, she was the head of the Republican Party in Florida or something. I think it was what Gail Minogue was talking about it, how when Trump was younger, his father had a nanny that kind of took care of him and kept him in line. And so Trump seems to have an affinity for strong older women.
That would make sense. Yeah.
When he was
But at
building, when
but
he
he's
was
also
building,
obviously very sexist focused. I mean, when you
Oh, you
listen to
think
some
so,
of his
Jim?
speeches at the rallies,
You
and he
think
starts
so?
off talking about something, and they say, "Oh, isn't that an attractive woman over there? Look at that, you know, look at her, he makes some comment about an attractive woman that he spots somewhere either on stage or in the near crowd.
Yeah, he's not.
It's unusual when he doesn't because he's very focused on that. If you look at him from a psychological perspective, he meets all of the diagnostic criteria for a narcissist
Of course.
and for antisocial personality disorder.
And
He meets several
don't
of the
forget
criteria.
he's ADHD also.
But that's giving ADHD a bad name.
can
You're
I
talking about
add one
Susie
thing
Wiles,
here?
right?
But he is. He can't keep his attention to anything more than a minute
He
or
has a
so.
very he does not have a good focus. His focus span is relatively short. And that's
Right.
well documented. I mean, even the people that worked with him during his first tenure in office, it's like if they wanted him to read something, his name had to be on it in big and bold, so that as soon as he sees his name, he reads it. But it has to be short, otherwise he's going to lose interest in it once he gets past his name. And you'll notice how he uses a bold marker to sign things and to
Yeah.
write,
Yeah. Yeah. That's
garnering
narcissistic.
attention.
Yeah,
Not to mention he has pretty good
he's
penmanship.
definitely
Definitely,
narcissist. Yes.
Yeah,
yeah,
but
he's
Mark
got all the
Cuban accused Trump of
but
never surrounding himself with intelligent, strong women. And then, boom, he picked Susie Wiles, whom he called the Ice Maiden, because she is a soldier as far as the campaign. She's like loyal. She does all the groundwork. Trump can trust him. So it's kind of like an in Mark Cuban's face statement. Well, here's a strong, intelligent woman. And because she
hmm.
knows the logistics and Trump can trust her. And it's a statement, the first female chief of staff. I don't understand why people don't give Trump credit for that.
Oh, I think he deserves credit for that.
Can
Sure.
I can I say something here? On Trump when he built Trump Towers, it was a woman who was in charge of most of that building. I mean, for some reason, people were very shocked when they got into looking at the way the building of that thing was. Who negotiated with all these people was actually a woman, and she, to
Because
me,
he respects women. He doesn't, he's colorblind and he's sex blind. If you've got the qualities, you're hired. That's how I see him.
He's raped
Uh,
20
well,
women. It doesn't, you're,
well, I don't know
Why would he
if
choose a
you
woman if a guy could be better?
if you look at his biography, if you look at what he had, uh, if you read something about the the whole history of him from some other perspective. I don't know about what we might have from Cornelia, but I have on pretty good source that he had a woman way up on the building of that Trump Tower. And so I think it's interesting. I'm not surprised that she was a woman, and this is another woman that he would turn to. I think
Um,
maybe it's the nanny. I don't know.
I
But
think from my perspective, um, somebody can appreciate women, support women, and they can support minorities, but they can still be a racist and a sexist. His own comments are very misogynistic
Yeah.
when he talks about,
Very.
when he owned the Miss America, Miss Universe pageant, I think it was, how he could just walk into the dressing room anytime he wanted to because he owned it, and he could grab women he could grab women by their privates if he wanted to, and they wouldn't say anything about it because he had the power.
the woman who
Now, in my mind, that's a bully.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
definitely a misogynist when the first comment he makes about some woman is how attractive she is. Now, when those women turn around and file a complaint about him and his behavior, he says, well, I wouldn't do that. That's not my type. Well, I mean, his type is, you know, attractive women. Yeah, granted, he doesn't seem to be drawn to unattractive women, unless he's looking for find someone that's intelligent or something. But yeah, I mean, you can be both. You can have the appearance of being um, liberal and progressive and not be. You can have the appearance of being wealthy and not be. You can have the appearance of being poor and not be. Look at Warren Buffett. Lives in the same house he's lived in for decades, drives the same old truck for decades. You wouldn't, to see where he lives and what he drives, you wouldn't think of him as a multi-billionaire. But he is.
The woman who ran his business and helped him build his tower and so forth came out against Trump and said very clearly he was a misogynist. So it's not even hiring somebody, and she saw what he did. So, and when people say, it's very funny that people are now seeing Trump as a pacifier, but he was the one that stopped the Iran nuclear deal. He killed that. He was the one that pushed the Golan Heights. He was the one that moved the capital of Jerusalem to Israel to Jerusalem. He said, just get rid of all the, bomb them, get rid of all the Palestinians. There's a anti-Palestinian vote that was also hurt, Biden and Harris. So he's anybody who talks about Trump and him not being dictator have a hard time talking about January 6th. What happened? Oh, it was just a nice meeting with a whole bunch of nice people. They can't even avoid what he's done against the United States. So it's interesting where warpness has occurred.
There's a PBS does some great documentaries, and they do it on the running presidents. They did it with him and Hillary, and him and Biden. They did it with the vice presidents, but there's a line that was just so obvious. They're talking about an early Trump, and his father says to him, "Your brother was a loser. Do not be a loser." He's told this at a very young age, and then he's put in this military school, and he's learned how to bully and lead and everything. But that election that you lost, that was the little boy Trump with the words of his father in his head, "Do not be a loser." And that's psychologically where he works from, that little boy place in his head.
That
which a
little
lot of us
boy
do.
has got Iran paranoid.
He got Iran paranoid?
Yeah, because Trump is Iran's nemesis. He's going to put the sanctions on Iran. Iran's going to go broke. It won't be able to fund its terrorist proxies. That's what Trump represents, American strength. He's
Mm.
going to make America's
Yeah.
adversaries tremble in their boots. I don't understand why people don't see this.
Well, you know,
Well,
Probably
we'll
because
come
of
back to you,
his
Michael, and
past
let you
behavior,
know.
Michael.
Huh?
Michael, I would say the reason that they're not quaking in their boots is because of his past behavior. When it comes to a fight, Trump's a wisp. He sucks up to China. He sucks up to North Korea. He sucks up to Putin. The greatest potential danger I see from a Trump presidency is he backs off Ukraine, allows Putin takes to go more extreme, conquer Ukraine, and then just keep going.
Yeah.
If Putin conquers Ukraine,
Hmm.
he's not going to stop there.
Oh, no,
He's going to
that will
move
not
up
happen.
to
That will not happen. Zelensky congratulated Trump for the win, and he also praised the peace through strength. I'm thinking Zelensky's looking for an
yes.
off ramp, and
What is peace through strength? Peace through strength is letting you do what you want to do, i.e., Putin expects to be able to do what he wants to do, and Trump will let it happen. That's where Putin's coming from.
yeah, well, I think Trump is the negotiator. You go from a
No.
boardroom negotiations to on the international stage negotiating with the most other powerful countries on the planet. You do not want to go to war. The United States does not want to go to war with Russia because we each have 2,500 nukes. Both leaders know that. So both leaders are going to sit down and say, okay, we don't want to go to war. So let's hammer it out. What do we do? How do we resolve the war in Ukraine? They're coming from that.
What happens?
War.
What happens with Trump's isolationist policy of tariffs? Put all
Terrorists?
these tariffs into place, and we
Well,
stop importing goods, and we separate ourselves. Let Europe and NATO take care of itself. What happens then?
I hear you. There's tariffs, I think, I'm not an expert, but it's a two-edged sword. He's using that as a negotiating tool. If he puts like 200% tariff on like China, China is not going to make money. It's going to bring China to the table, say, okay, let's deal. We don't want these 200% tariffs. Let's meet halfway. But on the other hand, tariffs will hit the American, people when we import,
Well,
the company's got to pay for it. It's a
here's
double-edged sword.
yeah, it sounds good as a talking point, but as somebody who majored in economics in college and has continued to remain up on the topic, tariffs have the downside to tariff is that it's like, if you put a tariff on something, the consumer is the one that pays for it. So prices go up, inflation goes up. Tariff is an automatic inflationary act. Secondly, yes, America is a big buyer of Chinese goods. There will be ways for them to get around that. But at the same time, they're also marketing extensively to the rest of the world. And the rest of the world has got a lot more people in it and a lot more market than America does. So China won't suffer that much from a 100 or 200% tariff on some goods. He can put a 200% tariff on Chinese electric cars. We don't have any anyway.
I want to point out that also there are retaliatory tariffs that other countries impose on US products, like farm goods and things like that, when tariffs are imposed.
But the Chinese
Yes,
here,
so our markets dry up. If we start imposing tariffs on other countries, they will impose tariffs on us. And guess what? Farmers will suffer because they won't have a place to sell their stuff. What little we might have to offer, we're going to end up paying for it. Yeah, ultimately, the consumer, you and I, when we go out to buy something, we're paying for tariffs, taxes, whatever you want to call it. Everything that goes into the cost that a company endures in producing a product or offering a service, we pay for it. They don't pay for it. We pay for it. The company doesn't pay for it. The consumer pays for it. It doesn't matter what it is. And unfortunately, in America, with some things, we pay a lot more than the consumers in other countries pay for it. For a lot of our medical medicines and the like, we pay a much higher price than other countries pay for things.
We also
It's just a
allow
fact
a
of
lot.
life. And I'm not blaming Trump or anybody else for that. It's just a fact of life.
Iran and Russia just signed an agreement of alliance, and China and Russia also has alignment. So you've got the three countries, Iran, Russia, and China, that will not allow the fall of Iran. And you've got the BRICS summits, where more GDP of the world is joining BRICS. And so China and even Russia in the Ukraine war has actually been stronger. So those countries are now switching away from the dollar and are doing business with each other. So these sanctions aren't even, they know about the sanctions because they took billions from Russia. So all the banks are changing right now. And so Iran being the evil one, even though they're number one on the terrorist list in US, they're not, their acts of terrorism are not even the top 15. The greatest number of terrorism that has happened that's listed is Israel. So it's a huge propaganda that the American people have been fed, that if you can look at the US government's list of terrorists, they haven't caused any terrorism and broken international law over and over.
No, you're right. You're right. There's one interesting thing though. In Iran, look at women's rights. You look at Iran in the 1979 and before, that was what, Imperial Iran. You had women school teachers wearing dresses and flowing hair. That was under the monarchy. I'm thinking that's better for the Iranian people and children than under the Islamic Republic that oppresses women, forcing them to wear the hijab. But what the lens that people are seeing is, we have to back up Palestine. Palestine's got Hamas. Hamas is funded by Iran. Therefore, Iran is not such a bad character. And so you got to take a pick. Is Israel our best friend in the Middle East? Or do we
No.
Iran? And going back to Obama, they always wanted Iran to counterbalance Israel. Trump, on the other hand, is saying, no, Israel is the number one only democracy in the Middle East. We have to be solid. And Iran is the enemy. We don't want Iran to have nukes, because what you're describing is Iran is on the pathway to get nukes. Then what?
Yeah, but Israel has nukes. They've caused a war.
It's a democracy that fighting for freedom. Iran has said they want to erase Israel from the map. That's why we can't allow Iran to get nuclear weapons.
Yeah, Michael, you think that's fine the way Israel treats the Palestinians? Is that so?
I would say it's not fine.
Well, that's why you asked.
It's
Holocaust. There's a Holocaust going in Palestine right now, in the Gaza. That land, when Israel became part of the UN, they were supposed to repatriate 700,000 back Palestinians. They did not. They recently in April, the UN declared that all settlements in the West Bank is illegal. They need to remove it. Israel constantly just breaks all UN rules and kills UN people, have destroyed all of Gaza, their schools, their hospitals, killed journalists. I mean, we have a faster rate of killing than any time, even during the Holocaust. So the picture in the US is totally lopsided, just counting death. The death isn't 50,000. It's more close to 200,000 Palestinians, because they don't allow bulldozers to dig under the buildings.
Right, but you're making it sound like Hamas is a rosy organization championing the rights of the Palestinians. They will sacrifice Palestinians
by you
for a message.
Okay.
For political purposes.
Innocent.
I think we have to agree that we're going to disagree on a lot of points, people.
A lot.
And that's good.
Yeah.
And it's good that here we can talk about those and we can express our own opinions and interpretations of what's happening. And yes, I agree that the Israeli tactics against Hamas supposedly has had a very adverse and impact on the actual civilians. Some of that, Hamas has to get the blame for some of that, because they were the ones that started this active war, rather than trying to find a peaceful solution, trying to reconcile things. I think, in my humble opinion, that the UN was founded on great ideas, and had some limited success in early on, but has become somewhat more of just a figurehead and is really kind of, it's really not fulfilling its purpose anymore. What's the point of declaring somebody a war criminal if you can't then go out and haul their ass in and charge them in the courts and punish them?
Exactly.
What's the point of having a United Nations, and what's the point of telling Israel, for example, that no, you've got to pull your people back from the West Bank and let the Palestinians have this land, and then making them do it, going over there and actually physically doing it.
Right.
That's the problem. United Nations offers great advice and great says do this, but doesn't have any power or exercise any power to make it happen. So they're becoming less effective,
Yeah. they're less effective.
unfortunately.
Free world.
And
That's what
there's two sides to everything. And yes, too many innocent civilians are killed in war. It didn't used to be as bad back when we were using bows and arrows and the armies would meet in a field and they'd have hand-to-hand combat mostly. But as warfare has become modernized, it's become much worse and more civilians suffer. The United States has been very fortunate in that the last war on our soil was the Civil War. I know 9/11, but that wasn't a war. That was an act of terrorism. And yet, so we don't have that issue. But yet we've inflicted hundreds of thousands of casualties on civilians in the wars that we fought elsewhere. I mean, think of the 200,000 or more Japanese that were killed immediately with the drop of 2 atomic bombs. Think of all of the Germans that were killed with the firebombing of Dresden in World War II. Yes, we're targeting what should be military targets, trying to end the war. But at the same time, it's like, well, it's them, and if we kill enough of them, they'll want peace. And it worked, and it saved a lot of other lives. But yeah, civilians in today's world pay the price of the wars that are fought between predominantly old white men arguing over who's got the bigger stick, I guess. I don't know. They're arguing about. I don't see personally, I don't see Trump as being a man of peace or any better at preventing World War III than Harrison Walz would have been. I give him a slight disadvantage because of his sucking up to Putin and how much he admires dictators.
Yeah, that's the scary
You
part.
cannot deny that he has openly admitted his admiration for dictators such as Putin and the guy in China, whatever his name is, and the Prime Minister of South Korea, and the guy in Hungary, whose name escapes me now. So I mean, I'm sorry, but when you're admiring those kind of people, and the reason, I mean, it makes sense to me that he admires them because look at him. He's the head of the Trump organization. He doesn't have a board of directors to answer to. There's nobody that's going to fire him. Because the only way he loses his job is if he dies, as far as the head of the Trump organization. He's it. He's got, within his organization, he's all powerful. And when he steps into the White House, he thinks he's still got that. He thinks as president, he should still have that power.
Mhm.
And he doesn't realize that he doesn't, not according to the Constitution. And he's done everything he can so far to change that by loading up the Supreme Court. Now, I blame the Democrats for letting that happen because, I'm sorry, but those Supreme Court justices that were appointed by Trump, that wouldn't have happened if they hadn't gone along with him. And they went along with every one. Maybe they had some hearings and maybe they had some objections, but in the end, they went along with it. And so, we get what we wanted. We get what we wished for. So, if we don't have people that stand up for what's right, And the unfortunate thing too is within the Republican Party, the moderates aren't standing up to the extremists. Same thing as with the Democrats. I mean, the unfortunate thing is that both parties have allowed extremists to gain too much weight and control, even though they're in the minority.
Yes, well,
The
have you
Republicans,
noticed
you know,
that
the Republicans and
also,
Democrats had worked out a viable, workable plan for a border policy. Trump talked to his minions, the right-wing extremists,
Mhm.
and said, don't approve it. And so they were able to stop it. Why? Because the rest of the moderate Republicans let it happen. If they had combined with the moderates had gone with the Democrats and said, no, we've got something we want to work. We need to make it happen now. The only reason Trump didn't want it was because it would have made, would have been good press for Biden and the Democrats for the 24 election. So getting them to block that was a smart move on his part.
that
The
Can we
was
Democrats
move
didn't do
on?
enough about it.
cemented catch and release, and he wants to reinstitute remain in Mexico. His hands would have been tied, right? If that bill had passed, his hands would have been tied, and he wouldn't be able to implement remain in
No.
Mexico. I think so. That it's like strategic, but like the
I
Republican Party,
think remain in Mexico is not going to work.
huh?
Remain in Mexico is not going to work any more than his stupid wall works. If his wall worked, we wouldn't have as many immigrants. We wouldn't have this problem. Theoretically, the idea behind the wall was to keep them from coming over. That Mexico was going to pay for the wall. No, they're not going to pay for the wall.
Wall
We're
has
building
to
it. We're paying
prove
for it.
you need like
You and I are
drones.
paying for that wall. That does no good because what happens? They go over it, they go under it, they go around it. The wall's a farce.
We need a stronger wall, which means like
Jim,
drones
it's 2
and
o'clock already. Do we have more charts to look at?
Yes, we do. So here's
Okay,
here
let's go.
is, hang on, let me back up one more here. This is the USA birth chart that Cornelia came up with, and it's based upon the signing of the Treaty of Paris, because that's when England
No, it
acknowledged
was
that
on it was on the ratification
the ratification of it,
that had
of
to
the
be
Treaty of,
done by the colonies.
right, which was when England acknowledged the American independence, right?
Yes.
That's when we
And
became,
the boundaries were set.
yeah. So this is when America became America. I don't think we weren't actually called the United States yet because we hadn't got the Constitution yet.
So you're saying January 14th, 1784,
Yes.
Right.
not 1776.
No, because
Uh,
they had to send Benjamin Franklin and a couple other guys over there to batter out a treaty. Then the treaty had to be sent to America and approved by the Congress. Then it had to be approved by this a majority of the colonies,
Mm-hmm.
which wasn't done until the Congress was meeting at that time in Annapolis, Maryland.
that's
So it's
interesting.
kind of like
America is
saying,
founded on freedom, right?
Yeah.
So what do you go by when the founding fathers say we declare ourselves free, or do you go by Great Britain saying, okay, we acknowledge that you are free?
we're not free until somebody, if we
They had to
belong
fight
to,
a civil war. They had to fight a revolution. They could have lost.
yeah, and then things would have,
And
yeah,
it
if we had,
wouldn't be America,
So you're
would
not
it? We'd
saying
be
that
simply
the
living
Treaty of
under
Paris is
English
more
rule.
important than this July 4th, right?
So what
actually
is
it
the
is.
July 4th, 1776 time? What happened that
Declaration
day?
of Independence.
So that was the
Well,
insemination.
if you use this chart, you'll find that Uranus was on the ascendant when the Declaration of Independence was signed.
Oh,
If you regress this chart,
that's big.
You want a bi-wheel with this chart and the Sibley chart? Is that what you're talking about?
no,
So what you're
No.
saying, Cornelia, is that the signature was in 1776. It wasn't ratified by the British until 1784.
Well, there was nothing for the British to do in 1776.
that was the
Um,
beginning. That was the beginning of a war, a revolution, which
The
they could have very
Declaration.
well
Yeah.
lose. Yes, they could have very well
Um,
lost because England was much, much bigger.
Of course.
Could I
Yeah,
ask-
so the Declaration, just declaring it is 1776.
Oh, you mean are you saying
Ratifying
the
it
Revolutionary
is
War happened after the
1784.
Declaration of Independence?
yes.
Or
The whole war was after well, it actually started before the Declaration of Independence, but yeah,
Oh,
the war was from 76 to 83.
my U.S. history isn't so good.
Can I interject a thought here about the numerologist who was going by the years, 80 years and 80 years, and now we're in the 80th year again. It seems to me that the cycle of Uranus to make a complete return to a spot is like 82 years, I think, isn't it?
It's
Right.
like 83 or 84, yeah.
So it seems to me then that if she wasn't using astrology, she was using some kind of system that was working with the very pattern that is in astrology, because that works with Uranus and a Uranus return or Uranus return, Uranus return. I guess we're at a place now where we're looking at the Uranus return.
Right now, we're looking at Uranus going through the 12th house. That's all the turmoil, all the bringing up of all our conscious, like you said, all of our issues are coming to the fore. Racism, women's rights, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So when Uranus hits that ascendant next time, it'll be 2028. So we've got to go through all this turmoil before we get there.
Yeah, which makes total sense when you consider how divisive this election has been and how
Exactly.
the division that occurs within the American populace in terms of the outcome of the election. And you know,
Well,
both
the reason I like this chart is because the only opposition is between Uranus and Saturn. And we go back and forth from one. As soon as you have Uranus bringing up a revolution, then you have Saturn trying to strike it down. You got a liberal president, and then you got a Capricornian type of president. It goes back to the old issues.
yeah.
So
It's interesting that the Uranus in this chart is out of bounds, but out of bounds north. Meanwhile, Pluto is out of bounds south, trying to keep things from moving ahead. And
yes,
they're
it's for the whole yard.
yeah, exact inconjunct from Uranus to Pluto.
Well, compare it to somebody else's chart.
Okay, so
See
let's
what
see
you
here.
come up with.
So here's your birth chart and Kamala Harris's birth chart. Mercury on the vertex of the 1784 chart. We have, let's see, her moon is exactly on the Mars of the 1784 chart.
That's what she is, a happy warrior.
Saturn on the part of
Because her
fortune.
Mars is in Leo.
Mm-hmm.
And her Mars is in Leo.
Back it up. Oops, hang on. Go back. Here we go. I'll get that out there. Thank you. Let's see. So looks like a Uranus Chiron. Not sure Uranus Chiron position. So her Virgo planets here are basically opposing her Chiron, and they're lined up pretty close with the nodes of the 1784 chart.
Mm-hmm.
So if we look at Donald, we see his part of fortune is on the part of fortune of the 1784 chart. We see his Chiron over here at 14 Libra on the Neptune moon of the 1784 chart. We have his Mercury on the Uranus of the 1784 chart.
He set up all the issues that are combined in the yod.
Mm-hmm.
He brought them all to the forefront.
Yeah. Sometimes you need somebody like him to actually bring these issues up and say, yo, America, wake up. Time to take a look at this stuff.
Well, that's what it's going to take.
Yeah. America becomes complacent when, I guess, probably, during times of peace, everything seems to be going along so nicely. And then when something upsets the apple cart, it's like, now what? We had COVID. That upset the apple cart.
Yes, it certainly did.
Yes.
It gave us a glimpse of how Trump would handle a crisis poorly.
Yes. And what's that whole
Um,
thing about him sending COVID tests to Putin?
Yeah.
And he denied it and Putin confirmed it.
Mhm.
Oh, well, I think that Mercury conjunct Uranus shows exactly what he did. He set off all of the main issues
Yeah.
that I
And his,
describe in the book that Americans had from the very beginning. They didn't have women's rights. They treated the,
and both
and there's
are out of
caste,
bounds.
you have a caste system.
Keep in mind that both Trump's Mercury and the 1784 chart Uranus are out of bounds.
And what does that mean for you?
That means more extreme,
Right.
even more extreme.
Trump's Mercury and what's out of bounds?
The Uranus of the of the 1784 USA chart are both out of bounds, meaning they've gone beyond the limits of the sun. They no longer have to follow by the rules. They can behave in any kind of extreme behavior they want.
Mhm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, but if you're born with like Mars out of bounds, there's like the positive side and the negative aspect and the positive. I mean, what would
Yes.
be the way to attune to channel that energy positively rather than like destructively?
The individual.
Yeah.
It's going to come from
Yeah.
it's going to come from their environment, their nurturing that they've had, and the learning that they have, and whatever else is going on. That's maybe it. How everything else is relating to that point.
Yeah, it's like nature and nurture.
Got it.
Yeah.
By the way, I
Take the
can't see
same
the
characteristics and you can put it to good or you can put it to evil.
Right.
Excuse me. It could be a matter of one person with Mars out of bounds could become a serial killer, while somebody else with the same alignment might become a great athlete. Yeah, so you can't tell from just how that simple placement how that person is going to then live that chart.
And Trump's Pluto is opposite the US Pluto.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, he's got Pluto opposite Pluto. And the 1784 chart has Jupiter conjunct Pluto, conjunct Mercury.
Mm-hmm.
But I think too that having his part of fortune on the part of fortune of this chart certainly plays well for him. And it's the 10th house. It's the house of power.
Hey, could we put the election chart over the over the Cornelius
Yes,
birth
we
of
can. Here it is, right here.
because
Here we go.
Uranus then is involved, I mean, in a trine to that sun. The election
Mhm.
And
at
Saturn's on our 10th, and our Saturn's on our north node.
Yeah.
Election.
So here's Saturn for the election day sitting on the north node. We have transiting Uranus, trining the sun. We have
The moon in
basically we've got
Capricorn.
this is like 2 days after the exact Mars Pluto opposition,
yeah,
with Pluto still within
orb.
orb of the sun.
Well, that's interesting because on January 6th, Pluto was on the sun.
Mm-hmm. See, 14.
I didn't know that until I did the chart for that day.
I know. It's like,
Pluto was at 24 Capricorn.
yeah.
Cornelius, what did you say on January 6th? What are you talking about, hon?
At that time, transiting Pluto was sitting on a 24-degree Capricorn.
Yeah, but what time are you talking about?
January 6th of 21,
Okay, thank you.
the riot.
The riot, yeah. Yeah. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, 20. And this
And
place is the,
even though Pluto goes into Aquarius, it's not going to hit Mercury and Pluto and Jupiter for quite a while.
yeah,
You know, it might be interesting. I mean, it's kind of complicated, but it might be interesting. Trump is a product of his father, who is a product of the grandfather. Might be interesting to check the three males because his grandfather was like low life too. He was not allowed back in Germany. He was so
Right.
well, he
Yeah.
went back to Germany and then he wanted to reestablish his German citizenship and they wouldn't let him because
Yeah.
he had fled to avoid the draft.
mm,
So they kicked him out. Said, no, go away.
yeah. And then there's
Imagine how
that guy, that New York guy that kind of took Trump under his wing and taught him all sleazy
Cohen,
stuff. Who?
that lawyer Cohen,
Yeah. hmm
he's the one that
Yeah,
taught
it's
him always
interesting to
fight and always lie.
Yeah.
it's interesting to think of how different things might have been if Germany had accepted Grandpa Trump back into the fold.
Hmm. But there's
So
something about
you're saying in this election chart, you have Moon in Capricorn, which shows the shift to the right.
Yeah,
it shows the whole the three generations, at least three generations, where something's really off.
yeah, and it's I think too what's interesting is that it's in the eighth house.
What's interesting about that, the eighth house?
Well, it's the house of death
It has
of
to-
other people's
has
Money,
to
money.
do-
taxes,
Gotcha.
It has to
Right.
do with going to the right.
Yeah,
yeah.
But the
Mhm.
people are not going to be happy because that moon is going to be progressing over Saturn.
yeah. And that's, let's see, it's 10 degrees away. So within less than a year, let's see, this is November. What's 11 and 10 is 21, 9 by
Well,
September.
I see that as a depression
Mhm.
because the
Yeah,
moon
and
rules the second house.
yeah. So we're looking at towards the end of next year, September, August, September, October. If you might want to start saving some money and plan ahead for then, because if things could go south with the stock market and the economy, that could be a good indicator of when it might happen.
Right.
You're saying his tariff idea wouldn't work? Oh my goodness.
Well,
Uh,
Saturn at 12, where we go back, 12, the transiting Saturn then makes a quincunx very exact to the Neptune moon, which actually is making it within orb a square to the Uranus in Cancer.
oh, there, yeah.
Now,
hmm Yeah, so you've got, and I'm not sure why this doesn't show up, but basically the transiting Saturn at 12 Pisces is trining the Uranus of the 1784 chart at 9 Cancer, which squares Neptune moon of that chart in Libra, which goes back to the in conjunct to Saturn.
and that's in conjunct with show the doubt we have in our institutions at that time, because Saturn in Pisces is trying to make something work in a stationary place like ruled by Neptune, which is part of the problem in the whole fifth house situation. And I think that Saturn then, we're right there in the quincunx now. We don't know exactly what's going to happen. We have our hopes up. We're going to try to do something. We have a very negative situation going on in other ways. It's, I think it's a very interesting chart.
Yeah,
You think what?
I think it's a very interesting chart that we have for the January 14th.
No, the book
Yeah.
hasn't come out yet, but it's supposed to.
Jim, can you
All right.
progress the chart to when Pluto goes direct? I mean, when Pluto goes into Aquarius, I think it's November 19th. Is that the day?
This is
That's
well, hang
November
on, let me
5th.
back up. Okay. So
Pluto
here's
goes in January, I think. It goes into Aquarius, right on the inauguration.
no,
I
Pluto goes
thought it
into
was
Aquarius on November 19th.
November 19th.
But he's moving so slow that I think he's still at 0 or 1 Aquarius by inauguration day. Is he moving very slow?
Okay.
Okay, so
Yes,
here's the election chart.
the sun is at 0 and Pluto's at 1.
Yeah.
Well, when you look at Venus in this chart of the January chart, that Venus is really nearly 8. Look what it does to the Aquarius. There's a big sextile there. And I think sextiles are kind of underestimated, but look at that sextile that Venus has that's involved actually with the ruler of the rising sign in this chart. And in fact, the whole thing there is very interesting because the Venus is also kind of opposing that Gemini rising pretty fervently, I think. And yet, on the other hand, it's got those air planets up there in the 9th house, adding quite a bit to it. And I don't know what you do with the moon and the Neptune, because that would produce, in certain ways, a trine, but it's a very high orb, I would think.
Well, it does have a grand air trine in the United States,
Um,
but it also has a T-square with the Saturn, Uranus, and the moon.
uh,
So when things don't work out and there's too much tension between left and right, that's when people go to their alcohol and their drugs.
Yeah. Okay.
you-
So here's
you-
looking at the 1784 chart progressed to election night. So the 1784 chart's in the middle, the progressed is on the outside.
Pluto's on Pluto.
Yep.
Trine Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't do the progressions, and Saturn has a return.
Yeah. Saturn is retrograde and moving backwards.
Hmm.
Do you have the solar arc for this?
Yeah. I do.
Let's take a peek at that.
Okay. So here's your solar arc versus the 1784 chart.
Now, the outer chart is,
Solar arc.
look at that Neptune exactly on the ascendant and the moon. What an incredible wallop right there. That sends it all right there.
Right here. First house. Yeah.
Yeah. What a bash. That
That's
shows that
that's a religious right.
Mm-hmm.
you're absolutely right.
Yeah. Opposing the Venus of the
Where are
natal
you
chart.
looking? Right there?
Right here.
Oh, right there. Okay, thank you.
And it's a
And
very,
square Uranus too.
that's right.
Mhm.
That's right.
Let's see, two.
But don't you think that the Neptune conjunct Pluto there means something funky went on during this election?
You know, I've heard people say that the results got out pretty quickly. And I kind of, I would tend to have a hunch in your direction.
Well, certainly the people have had the wool pulled over their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
In more ways than one.
Yeah.
That Pluto on that Pluto thing is really interesting, I think. And what it is up to.
It's
you know.
yeah, it's well, I think in part what we've got here is a situation where, they historically they've made a lot about how many lies and exaggerations Trump has told during his, I mean, 30,000 during his first term, all the ones that he
Yeah.
made during his campaign. But they also pointed out that the Democrats weren't always being exactly honest either or truthful totally either. I mean, they all, it's like the old expression with statistics. Numbers don't lie, but liars can, how does that go? I'll think of it. Let's see. Figures don't lie, but liars can figure. There we go. That's what
There
it
we
is.
go. That's
I
it.
mean, they're talking about 13,000 illegal immigrants coming through that have been, that are known murderers and the like. Well, yeah, but that's for 40 years.
Mhm.
That's
Well, look at that.
13,000 over 40 years. Okay, and nobody bothered to point that out or to point out the fact of how many of them came through during, Trump's 4 years of tenure. So, I mean, there are
Yeah.
things that they could have done that would have helped. The problem
Yeah.
is, I think, is that uh, there's this large segment of the population that either one doesn't care that Trump lies or exaggerates, or they believe them anyway, even though factually it's established that they're not true. They
So
choose to believe them
The Venus
because it
in the
agrees
third
with what
house,
they want to believe.
the Venus in the third house rules the 12th house.
Venus in the
Here,
oh, yeah, but
Communication, fake
yeah,
news.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what if there is a bigger picture that we can't see, or maybe we can see it somewhere in future
Well,
astrology charts?
if you look at
That if
this,
everything is supposed to happen the way it's supposed to happen,
Yeah.
what could be the bigger picture here about why this turned out the way it was? And how it's, am I making my question clear?
Yes.
The answer is that it will become clearer if we look. I mean, what we should do is look ahead to 28
Well,
Yeah.
that might be a good idea.
and see what 28 has to offer for us. Now, I didn't do that. So let me quick finish the slideshow and then we'll take a look at that because I don't
That
really have
sounds,
too much.
yeah, because we're kind of bogged down in this, but
Yeah.
maybe there is a bigger
so
picture here.
There it is right there. What other charts should we look at or would you like to see? Well,
I just
let's look
asked.
at the
I don't
28
know.
election.
28
we go.
election.
Yeah.
Here's that caught in the time warp thing, yada yada. And next month we're December 8th, and we'll be looking at a forecast for 25, and then our 25 schedule. We hope to have something figured out by then. As per usual, the link of the video will be sent out when I get around to it. Copy of the PDF. It's available to anybody that wants it. Let me know. I will post it to our Facebook page so you can access it and download it from there. Otherwise, if you want me to send it to you, let me know. Okay, thank you all for having a great time.
it sent to me.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing right now. I'm going to come over here. Well, hang on. Let's see. When is the 28 election?
Well, it would be
Let's
the
see.
first Tuesday
After
in
the first
November
Monday in November.
2020, what, 2028? Yeah, November
I should be able
something,
to figure it out from what we did this time. But
28.
November 7th. There we go. Okay.
Do you know why
All right.
it's
So
on a Tuesday?
yeah,
Why is it on a Tuesday?
because the election is always the first Tuesday in November after the first Monday.
Yes, but do you know why they made it that way?
Harvest.
It gave them time to travel the distance to go vote between the harvests. Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we
okay.
are we looking at that chart or not? We're gonna give up
Not
on
yet. Not yet. I got to make the chart.
It
Oh.
seems funny that people would travel almost a day to vote, doesn't it?
Imagine how they had to do it back in 1874. I mean,
Horse and carriage. Horse and carriage.
Yeah,
Sunday they
right.
went to church. Monday they traveled to vote. They voted on Tuesday. They came back and they went to their market on Wednesday.
Yeah.
A quick question. I have not been able to see the charts on my screen for like the last 4
Oh,
or 5 minutes. How do I get see the charts?
What are you seeing on your screen?
Just the people.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
right.
hang on. Well,
That's what we're looking. That's what we're looking
all right,
at.
hang on.
People.
what we
No, I
gotta
think
do
Michael
is,
means previous ones too, though, right, Michael?
Yeah, well, like I would minimize it and I would see a chart there. And then when I expand it, it's just the people.
hang on,
Like
okay,
when you guys were like dialed in onto, looking at this chart, I'm trying to get to it and I just couldn't get to it.
Hmm.
let's see what we got to look for.
Because for me,
But
the
don't waste
charts
your
say,
time trying
yeah,
to
and
see.
people are above or on the side.
Okay,
Maybe it's the location
right.
of your format of your screen,
Here we go.
maybe.
All right, here we go. All right, share screen. Here
November
we go. Sharing
7th,
screen.
2028, right?
Yep. Okay. So here is, are you seeing it?
No, not yet.
No,
Oh, come on. What is with this pause? Don't have
double,
pausing
double
it.
click to enter full screen mode.
Yeah. Go away. Yeah. Go away. Go away. Stop sharing. I'm just,
No, we just
yeah.
got people.
What is this stupid thing?
I know.
Turn on all, start summary, ask me a question. No, I
Who
don't want
controls
that.
electronics? Mercury does. So if it's
Just,
wacky or wonky, it's Mercury.
oh yeah, Mercury's in its, here we go. All right, so let's try this now. Um, I give up. For some reason, yeah, some reason it does it when I start sharing it pauses it for some reason. So I'm not, oops, no, cancel. Wrong button.
I fixed it the first time.
All right,
Well,
here we go. I want to share. I want to share this chart. There we go.
Not quite.
Okay, so here is the election
No,
chart.
no,
No.
it's not coming up. Honey, it's not coming up, dear.
Why do you do this? Your screen sharing is paused. Why did you pause it? Why are you pausing? I don't want to pause you.
Jim, what are you using for the location?
For my location?
Well, yeah, for the 2028 location, or you just,
Oh, Washington, D.C.,
oh, okay.
the nation's capital. All right.
There are people in Missouri that don't know that that's the nation's capital. Because when I went to get my driver's license transferred from one state to another, from DC to Missouri, they said it wasn't a United States valid license.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my
That would
goodness.
make sense, though. You were in
Mhm.
Missouri. That makes
Well,
sense.
Washington DC is not a state. It's a what is it called? It
It's
has
a
The nation's
voting
capital.
rights. Huh?
Mhm.
It's the nation's capital. Yes, you can vote,
It's
but you
a
don't get
District of
representation.
Columbia.
It's the District
Yeah.
of Columbia. Yeah.
Right, but they said it
Yeah.
wasn't a valid US license.
That's different.
That's funny.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's not a valid US state, but
Correct.
I believe it's a federal district.
Mhm.
Yes, technically
Anyway,
that's what it is.
just an anecdote.
I know. Thank you. That's
Mhm.
showing us how educated people in the United States are.
Hang on. I think I have an idea what's going on. What's going on? Close that one. No, cancel.
You know, from Union
Close this one.
psychology, you might look at dreams and drawings and stuff to see what the
Sharing.
reason is. So
Let me
maybe
try
we
again.
can look ahead and see what this is all about.
Well, we're gonna have the Aries vortex. I
Yeah.
forget when that is.
It's coming up.
What's coming up? The Aries vortex?
Yeah.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It's when Saturn conjuncts Jupiter at 0 Aries
Oh,
and sextiles Pluto on one side and Uranus on the other side. It's like a
Okay.
wedge. It's like a tunnel. It's a vortex. All the
oh, a
energy goes
vortex.
into
Okay.
that.
All right. Why do you keep doing that? Okay, we got a meeting going on. We're good. All right. Everything is good. Everybody's here. I see everybody. For some reason, and I don't know why it's doing this. It did it when I was trying to do it before.
Michael, are you in the LA area?
Yes, yes. Yeah, we live in an art community a few miles south of downtown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my mother is an artist.
I can see the art behind you.
Do you see the chart now?
No, we see a black checker box.
Um,
No, it's striped. It's striped. It has stripes. in it.
I see a dark gray blank.
all right, it's pausing it again for some
I
reason.
still see the people, but
Great.
I see a dark gray blank.
I don't get out. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out why it, for some reason, it wants to stop sharing. Or it pauses this. When I go to share it, it starts out fine, but then it pauses it for some reason.
Hmm.
Because you have
Ah,
a
let's-
double click. You have to double click on it.
I never had to do that before.
It doesn't want to
try that.
show us the
Let me try
future.
that.
It says you're not going to know the future.
Yeah, it goes into pause mode. All right, let's try one more thing. Well, because if it doesn't work, then single click, single click. Yeah, it starts out fine, but then it automatically it just goes into pause for some reason. Let's see, what did I do different? Hang on, let me try something and pause. The participant can share every time. Click that off. Let's try this. Let's try this. Let's try this. Yep, keeps doing it. All right. Well,
Okay.
tell you what I'll do, since I've got all of you. I don't know if I can get around with that. I will send out the chart for the 28 election, and I'll do it also as a bi-wheel with the Sibley chart and with Cornelia's 1784 chart, so you can take a look at it and see what we
Okay.
think out of that.
Okay. And
Um,
what do you see in it just now, briefly? What do you
Mm.
see?
what do I see?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see.
And Trump can't
We
run
have a
again, right?
Chiron.
He can't run again. It doesn't have to be 8 consecutive years. It has to be just 2 terms. So
Unless he
technically,
declares himself dictator.
exactly. But
Yeah, he would have to change the Constitution in order to be able to
Yeah.
run again.
yeah, somebody was asking about that. I said no.
Well, he
Doesn't
wants to
have
get
be-
rid of it.
With the yeah, now, here's the thing: with the Supreme Court loaded in his favor,
He could do anything.
he could have they could challenge that amendment, and the
Mhm.
Supreme Court could say it's unconstitutional, and therefore, well, we have an unaspected moon as when the polls close. So I've got a chart set for 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Washington, D.C., November 7th, 2028.
Okay.
It shows South Node at 15 Cancer, Moon at 24 Cancer, 29 in the 12th house. Ascendant is 12 Leo. We have Saturn at 7 Taurus and Chiron at 5 Taurus. So father and son are getting together. We have Uranus at 13 Gemini. Neptune at 6 Aries. All of them are retrograde. Pluto's at 6.5
So that means
Aquarius.
Uranus has gone over the ascendant.
Uh-huh. Well, hot dog, Uranus is sitting on the moon. No, it's opposing my moon. All right. That's we look forward to. It's done that. It hasn't done that before. Yeah. So so the points I have are the base the 10 planets. I have Chiron, the nodes. I've got ascendant, midheaven, vertex, and part of fortune. Is there something else that people would like me to put in the chart? Something that I should take out? I have the ascendant and midheaven in there for bi-wheels. So what I'll do is I will do this chart and I will do bi-wheels with the like I say, the 76 chart and the 84 chart. And then we'll go from there.
But do you see anything different or significant as you're looking at it? Just briefly,
Well,
It's hard.
I think what's significant is that Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus are all well ensconced in new signs.
There you
Hmm.
go.
Okay, Uranus is done with Taurus, Neptune is done with Pisces. Oh, let me dream for what could be. Oh, the days of yore. We always, a lot of people tend to think about the good old days. And so a lot of people believe in the good old days. And that's what the Republicans believe in, is the good old days. And so what do they want? They want to go back to the good old days. Well, when was that? Well, the last time was, must have been when we had a Republican president, and that was Trump. So that must have been the good old days. But now it's in Aries. With Neptune in Aries, you can forget about those good old daydreams. It's like the chickens have come home to roost, as they say. It's the truth is out. Can't hide the truth. Not when it hits them in the pocketbook.
Right.
Not when their sons have gone off to war. Not when you've had a major pandemic that we weren't able to control that's killed more than, I think
Country
there's,
acted totally different during the Spanish flu than it
yes.
didn't have the divisiveness it had this time.
Mm. No. And fortunately, while it started right before the World War I ended, most of it took place, most of the impact was felt after the armistice was signed. But I think it's important to note that Pluto will be out of bounds south on election day.
What does that mean for you?
That means Katie bar the door, because I don't have to behave like I normally would. I mean, it could mean really going even further back into the past, bringing up, let's see, 28, go back 80 years to 48. Um, we could be in a new Cold War. We could be, depends on how far back the clock gets turned during the next 4 years.
Right.
But yeah, I know, because I brought up the B4 because there has been some stuff online about the B4 movement and encouraging American women to start their own B4 movement.
Well,
So
I'd
it'll
have
be
to say,
interesting.
okay, guys, no more sex for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what we have to do. Who
Yeah.
wants to
And I
get
mean,
pregnant under these circumstances?
right. But you've also got, guys, the response to Trump's election was you got these extreme right wingers saying things like, hey, your body, but my choice,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, which is the same as saying it's not yours, it's mine. And, in Arizona, they were playing uh, election ads over the intercom, the speaker system at like one of the football games in Arizona, in the ladies' room, advising women to let your husband vote for the family. You don't need to vote.
Oh my gosh. Where was this?
Arizona.
Oh,
And they imagine,
Arizona, you would think.
well, look
Gee.
at the stink that was raised when Kamala Harris came out and said, ladies, you don't have to tell your husband how you voted. And the right wingers went, my God, that's heresy. That's blasphemy.
I was
You're gonna lie
watching
to her
a
husband?
I was
No,
watching a
don't tell him.
Secrets of the Dead. It's on PBS. It sounds terrible. What it was, it's like you find something from the past and you figure out, and it was about these from the 17, no, I think it was earlier than that, in Poland, where they were finding these young female bodies that were buried as vampires, and they had sissels in their mouths and locks on their toes so they wouldn't come
Yeah.
back. It's like, and the witch hunts in Salem. It's like, just blame the women all the time. It's just like, where are the witches and the vampires? And it's just crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
It's crazy.
Well, folks.
That's because we have so much power over you men, because,
Yeah.
Not
just because you're smarter and stronger and better than we are.
Oh,
Well,
I'm reading a book you might like, Rita. It's called Eve.
Oh, that sounds interesting.
It
Was it-
is. It tells how the evolution of humanity happened through women.
Mm. I read something today. I guess it was a bit of a joke, actually. It says, women are crazy, men are stupid. Women are crazy because men are stupid.
No, no.
The reason women are crazy is because men are stupid. And in many cases, we are kind of dumb. I mean, we can usually put our pants on the right way, but, there's a lot of things that, we need you for.
I'm a Jungian, so I'm a big feminist,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My mother was too.
Okay. I am going to
We
stop the
called her
recording, and I'm going to
suffragette.
say au revoir to all of you since it's going on 3 o'clock. It's got
Wow.
all the time.
Okay, wow.
The time went.
Wassel.
Where? Oh, here we go. Stop
Bye,
the
everybody.
recording.
Thank
There we
you.
go.
Bye-bye.